I tried to include all of the other senses when describing colors, just to demonstrate, that colors mean more than just what's on the visual spectrum.
Please welcome, once again, to the Blind Ability Studio, author Chelle.
I wanted to end it with frequently asked questions kind of thing, because I wanted to educate, people about blindness. I actually interviewed a lot of blind people.
And you can find her email link in the show notes, as well as a link to the previous interview with Chelle, and learn more about Feather and her journey, her passions, and becoming an author.
I'm giving this book for free to people who sign up for my email list.
And now, without further ado, introducing her new Ability Awareness activity book, here's Chelle. Hope you enjoy.
We all struggle with different barriers or challenges in life. And kind of tried to touch on other abilities also, but mostly blindness because that's my experience.
Welcome to Blind Abilities. Today in the studio, we have an author, a mother, and many, many other titles I could go through. But she's just released a new book, The Colors of Darkness. It's an Ability Awareness activity book. Chelle, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Well, thanks for coming on to the show. I'm doing well. I'm going to strike that. How are you doing? I'm going to just say, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Well, thanks for sending out the notification that your new book is released, and it's an activity book as well.
It is kind of a hybrid book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I was looking at it, I mean, you start out with the poetry and stuff, and it's like, oh, this is nice. And what's going to rhyme with green? Or when it was tickle or something, I said, oh, this is going to be a tough rhyme, but it's fun to flow through it. But it's not poems that you have in there. Then you start talking about the awareness of blindness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And kind of tried to touch on other abilities also, but mostly blindness because that's my experience.
Well, it's really neat that you talk about color in there, because color is one of those questions like what color, instead of just saying blue is the sky. But you went through some audio descriptions that were just so tactile, I mean, you can really relate to it through other senses.
Yeah, I tried to include all of the other senses when describing colors, just to demonstrate, that colors mean more than just what's on the visual spectrum.
I like the chocolate one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Especially to the touch when it's like in your hand, like silk.
Mm-hmm. That was the easiest one for me to draw as well.
Tell us about drawing them.
Oh my goodness. Drawing was fun. I decided to draw a cover, and partly because, I'm challenging kiddos to draw with their eyes closed with this book, but also because I didn't want to spend more money on hiring someone to draw my cover. That's terrible, I know. But it was a really fun exercise. I tried drawing things over and over again, and my kids got a nice kick out of guessing what I was trying to draw. And when they guessed it right, then I would use it, choose that one for the cover. So it was fun.
They weren't biased at all. They were being very honest, like kids are, right?
Yeah, very, very honest.
Back to the drawing board.
Exactly.
So explain the activities that are in your book here, and who are they for?
I was aiming for kids kind of all ages. I think that the activities can be adapted for kids of most ages, although maybe like the 8 to 12 age range might benefit mostly from them as is. So it starts out with poems written from a blind person's perspective, basically 8 of my favorite things, but described in every way other than visually, like with all the other senses. And then I challenged the kids to draw those things with their eyes closed and kind of feel what those things mean to them without looking. And then I have a few activities to kind of help kiddos come to terms with the spectrum of abilities that people have, and to kind of realize that, everyone has strengths and weaknesses, and things that are easy for them and things that are difficult for them. And then also an activity to kind of come to terms with everybody has things in common and also things that are not in common. And that's okay, because our differences are what make us more special and more interesting.
Mm-hmm. I really like the forest and the shell one, the spiky and the edges and the smoothness on the inside. And that's made me think, wow, she's audio describing this well. And, audio description is a popular thing right now. It seems like it's growing right now. That these poems, that you took those topics and you explained them, and throughout some activities, but you talk about blindness, you kind of like unveil yourself a little bit, like, here's the reality of blindness and here's some positives. But then you go into some, I don't want to use stereotypical, but some questions that are usually asked.
So I wanted to end it with like frequently asked questions kind of thing, because I wanted to educate, people about blindness. And so I actually interviewed a lot of blind people before writing those questions and the answers to those questions, because I wanted a broad perspective. I basically brainstormed all the different questions that I get frequently from people, and even some that were just kind of oddball questions to throw a little humor in there. But those were all questions that I've been asked at some point in my life. So.
And the most dreaded one was touching the face. I had to pause. I was almost late to this podcast because that was probably one of the last questions. And I know you did leave it for last, probably for that reason.
Yeah. Has anyone asked you to touch their face before, Jeff?
Yeah. Most of the time, I would say 19 times out of 20, I handle those questions pretty well. But every once in a while, the lucky person that gets me in the right mood, huh. But no, it was really neat to look at the book because you're actually bringing awareness, and that's the intent of this, and through activities, interacting with whether they're sighted or whether they're visually impaired or blind, that they can do it. But you also included the ASL alphabet.
Right. Yeah. I was wanting to just introduce kiddos to all different, I guess that they're technically called disabilities, but I like to refer to it as like the spectrum of abilities that people have. Some people have trouble hearing, some people have trouble seeing, some people have trouble with like social situations or mentally, or, we all struggle with different barriers or challenges in life. So I was trying to introduce some of those.
Well, you did a good job of it. And you really approached this stuff to, like you said, 8 to 12-year-olds probably is targeted. But when I was reading it, I was like, I kept flowing. At first, I just saw the poems and said, oh, it's a poetry book. And then all of a sudden it got into you actually describing yourself and blind and how you went blind that you'd never seen before. Do you dream? Do you see when you dream?
Right.
Your perspective of it is just an honest, point blank, real, that kids can just take away from, and it's not confusing to me or to them. Yeah. Right. So it's a great activity. I highly suggest anybody out there, especially in the teaching, or if you're, a TVI or some sort, to bring this book and use it as a good activity, whether you're in a group or passing it along to other people, even if there is no blind or sighted. There's no blind or sighted. Even if you're just dealing with sighted students, to bring awareness to it. I think it's a great book for that.
Well, thank you. I do want to reach as many kiddos as possible and, spread awareness of disabilities. I'm giving this book for free to people who sign up for my email list. So anyone who's interested can sign up for my email list and get a free printable copy of this book to use with classes or, your kids at home or scout troops or anything like that, any group of kiddos.
And we'll put the definition of kiddos in the show notes too. I'm kidding. I use that word too. So when I first heard you say that on our previous podcast, I was like, I like her. Kiddos.
I say it. Probably old.
How do people get signed up?
So right now my website's under construction, but I have started my email list. So you would simply need to send an email with the word subscribe in the subject line to feather.chelle.author@gmail.com. You will be added to the email list. And that has already started. So I think I've sent this book to about 400 people so far. So that's exciting.
And that's feather.chelle, correct?
Yes. .author@gmail.com.
Great. That's great. Now, this isn't your first time at the rodeo of writing books. I think I have 4 of your books now.
Yes, I've released 4 this year. So that's exciting.
Wow. You got me hooked on the recipe. I did make that meatloaf recipe you sent me a while back. Now you just sent me another one, the concoction that you come up with. And I said to my wife, and put breadcrumbs or French onion. She says, isn't that a little too much? I said, no. That's perfect. I know where she's going with this. I think
delicious.
that was... So there's Ode to Mom, which has some poetries and some cookbooks. And you're coming out with one called Ode to Dad, I believe.
Those books are designed to be gifts to mothers and fathers from kiddos. We'll use that one again. And so it starts out with a few poems that are dedicated to mothers or fathers. And then it has a lot of recipes that the mother or father can make alone or with the help of kiddos. And I do a lot of experimental cooking. So I put tons of suggestions for like customizing different recipes and, different ways to make things. And then I have a number of projects that, again, they can do alone or with kiddos.
I just heard a kiddo in the background there. That's proof.
They do exist.
Yeah, this is not all fictional writing and podcasting. There's some real stuff to it.
Based on tons of experience.
Yes, it is. So how can people find your books?
The best place probably to find them is on Amazon. My website, feathershell.com, should be up and running within the next month, I'm hoping. And so that can be a good hub. They can also be found on Barnes & Noble and maybe some other retailers, but I'm not sure if the expanded distribution has kicked in quite yet. It takes a while with Amazon.
There we go. So you got some books in the works coming up?
Oh, tons. I think I have 12 books written.
I know, I saw that. And so when you said tons, I was like, yeah, probably. Yeah.
They're in various stages of editing, formatting, illustrating. But I'm being hopeful that I'll have at least 2 or 3 more released this year. So that'll be exciting.
So in the spare time, you raise your kids too?
I do. A little bit of that.
That's great. Well, Feather, is there anything else you want to get out there to the listeners?
I just want to thank everybody for reading and encourage anyone who has questions or comments to contact me via email.
And we got a link for that in the show notes, and just put subscribe right into the subject line and you're on the list. I like that.
Exactly.
Well, Feather, thank you so much for taking the time away from all your work and all that you're doing. Thanks for doing what you do, really, because bringing awareness, especially through activities and letting kids bring up the awareness through them, is really important. I just want to say that when I lost my eyesight, I was older, and I don't remember anybody talking about blindness.
Right.
Other than maybe the Color of Blue book, or I don't know, I can't remember, whatever it was. But nothing stuck. There was never an activity. There was no readings about it. And now there's ample of supply of readings coming out and already out. So thank you.
Of course. Thank you for having me. I always enjoy our conversations.
Oh, great. Yes, always a good time talking to Feather Chelle. Be sure to send an email with subscribe right in the subject line to feather.chelle, that's CHELLE.author@gmail.com. And if you want to find out more about Feather Chelle, just click on the link in the show notes and you'll find a wonderful podcast that we did with Feather just about a year ago. A big shout out to Chi Chow for his beautiful music. You can follow Chi Chow on Twitter at @LChiChow. And for more podcasts with the blindness perspective, check us out on the web at blindabilities.com, on Twitter at blindabilities, and download the free Blind Abilities app from the App Store and Google Play Store. That's 2 words, Blind Abilities. And if you want to leave some feedback, give us a call at 612-367-6093. I want to thank you for listening, and until next time, bye-bye.
When we share
what we see
through each other's eyes, we can then begin to bridge the gap
between the limited expectations and the realities of blind abilities.
The realities of blind abilities.